Well, welcome back to our East Ruston series of videos for 2024. And in the first part of these video series, we took you around the gardens that wrap around the old vicarage. In this part, we're going to walk you down these long herbaceous borders that make their way towards the vegetable garden and then around the spectacular walled garden. Just look at that phlox, pure white, up to around 6 foot with this year's wet and cool spring. Been a very good year here in Norfolk for phloxes. They are doing as well as I've seen them do over the last decade. Little bit of verbena. This herbaceous border has been planted here for quite a long time. It was one of the I think last borders that they did. Little Alpina clematis, just look at that one. Lovely little striation on that flower. Upper metal support, growing very well indeed. Quite a bit of architectural support's been used in here with a repeat planting of clematis, roses, all held tightly in with these box hedging and balls. And then this spectacular architectural feature, this copper bath, or I don't know what it was, part of a laundry I assume. Maybe it was manufactured specifically for garden use. No idea what they've got growing in it, but isn't it flowering beautifully? If you recognise this little marginal or bog plant, do let me know. A lot of back plantings with roses, grasses, pampas, ornamental grasses. I've used looks like a cardoon flowering really tallly at the back there, all sheltered within this. I think it was a beech hedge that's been really well pruned and gives the shelter to these long herbaceous borders. They're quite deep as well, probably 15 or 18 foot each one of these. Feverfews, just look at the oak grass, the way it works really well against that really dark background in the shady hedge behind. Fennel's growing here as well, one of our favourite plants, always grows very reliably and seeds everywhere in the gravel. At the far end we've got a repeat planting of that clematis, but a double at this end, same colour palette, again growing really well. And there's a long view looking back towards where we came through from the gardens around the old vicarage. But now let's make our way into the vegetable garden. Not all about vegetables, we've got to be fair. This is a ornamental vegetable garden. Central pots, nasturtiums, ruby chards. Just look at the sunlight coming through those orange and red stems, as good as any flower. And then a good planting of small sunflowers. Lovely red scented one. It's another one of those chards, beautiful things. Too good to eat really. They must be doing an awful lot of watering here to keep it looking this lush. I know it's been a wet season, but it soon dries out. Here is the entrance to the grand walled garden and the fantastic gateway leading through past that spectacular hydrangea. And in here, another microclimate, alliums and agapanthus. Crocosmia fireglow, and a good sprinkling of roses still. Look at that for an old-fashioned quartered rose. Absolutely spectacular. The walls have all these supports on. Just look at how much work's gone into putting the framework ready for the plants. And then in this glasshouse, the Coleuses are incredibly mature, large specimens. If you want to see how to grow coleus in glass houses over summer, then do visit East Ruston. They've done it so well in here. All their glass houses have seating areas in them, which is a lovely idea if you've got the space to replicate that. create a sitting area rather than it just being a workshop. Even the buckets are decorative in this garden. Let's look at that one. Beautiful. This walled garden's still looking absolutely spectacular at the end of July. I've got a fantastic range of agapanthus and alstroemeria, many of which are available for sale in the on-site nursery. So a lovely feature of visiting East Ruston is you can, if you really take a liking to certain ones of these plants, take them home with you. That's a real hot coloured spot of alstroemeria, isn't it? And that beautiful dark foliage just picking it up. I particularly like this dark blue agapanthus, grown en masse, really stunning in front of the glasshouse. Ideal place for it. Look at the bud on that rose. I mean, it shouldn't be doing that well in late July, should it? Must be feeding and watering to keep this lot looking so lush. Fantastic trellis of sweet peas. The scent off those was very good indeed. And purple loosestrife, again in a hot walled garden, really shouldn't be doing that, should it? But it must be really well mulched, well watered, and in some very good soil, growing through that phlox again. Stunning. Oops. Bear with me while I get my bearings, and we're back again. Don't know what this was, but I did like it. A hot spot of spires. There's it in a distance. Thought initially from a distance it was going to be a sorrel, but it's obviously, I don't think so. So again, please let me know if you recognise that one. Back to that agapanthus, which is repeat planted throughout this garden, and more of those sweet peas. This is either side of a large rose arch, which I think's predominantly planted for early summer colour. There weren't many flowering roses on the actual arch. Now that is a sorrel, I'm sure. This one again, I didn't know what this was. Almost like a little berry flower, but enough of them to make an impact at a distance. There's a lighthouse cut through the mature pine trees, the fruit cage, which is an architectural feature in its own right, and again more agapanthus, absolutely at their peak at this time of year. So it's a great time to visit if you're wanting to see the colour variations and combinations. Now we've come round the back of the walled garden into the little, I think, owner's favourite spot for pottering, and the service area with a little potting shed, and the glass house that contains tomatoes, peppers and chili peppers. A little wall display of begonias. Really well done. Must take a lot of watering, but they're all in trays, interestingly, so probably how they keep them looking so good. Potting shed roofs comes right down to around 4 foot, collecting all their water. There's water butts all around this garden, which is a really good idea. It's always nice to see jobs in progress and new plants coming in, being split, division, watering cans ready to go where they should be, right by the water butts. And this is probably the smallest of the glass houses on site, but I think probably one of the most productive. Nasturtiums and some vegetables in troughs around the outside, and then inside some really interesting looking heritage varieties of tomato, chili pepper and sweet bell peppers, aubergines, a whole range. Just look at that. Nice combination of beds on the floor and raised supports for the smaller plants, and then to the side you're back into the formal garden with its plantings, all looking very, very good. Lots of different areas at East Ruston. Shady areas, spring bulbs, there's something to see at all times of year. But late summer, on a beautiful sunny day, it's really looking at its best. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this tour.